The storm raged outside the sprawling Voss Mansion, thunder clapping like the wrath of the gods, while inside, chaos reigned supreme. Rain lashed against the floor to ceiling windows of the grand foyer, casting shimmering shadows that danced like ghosts across the marble floors. In the midst of it all, a young woman barely 25, her uniform disheveled and tear-streaked, burst through the heavy oak doors, her sobs echoing through the vast halls. "I can't. I just can't anymore," she cried, her voice breaking as she clutched her coat to her chest. Behind her, the piercing wails of three tiny voices pierced the air, a symphony of distress that seemed to shake the very foundations of the opulent estate. This was Maria, the latest in a long line of maids hired to tame the untamable Alexander Voss's triplets. No one had lasted. Not the seasoned nannies from elite agencies, not the desperate immigrants seeking a foothold in the city, not even the so-called experts with degrees in child psychology. They all fled. Some after days, others after mere hours, muttering about demons in diapers or a curse on that house. Maria had held on for a record 2 weeks, but now, as lightning illuminated her pale face, she stumbled down the winding driveway, her footsteps splashing in puddles that reflected the mansion's glowing lights like accusatory eyes. Upstairs, in the nursery, painted in soft pastels that belied the turmoil, the triplets Leo, Lila, and Luca were in full rebellion. Leo, the ringleader with his father's piercing blue eyes, hurled a stuffed bear across the room, where it thudded against the wall with a muffled thump. Lila, her tiny fists clenched, screamed at the top of her lungs, her cheeks flushed red as she kicked her legs in the crib. Luca, the quietest but most unpredictable, had somehow escaped his playpen and was now smearing banana puree across the Persian rug, his giggles turning to whimpers as the sticky mess clung to his fingers. The room smelled of spilled milk, baby powder, and desperation, a sensory assault that had driven Maria to her breaking point. Alexander Voss, the billionaire tech mogul whose empire spanned continents, stood at the threshold of the nursery, his tall frame silhouetted against the hallway light. His chiseled jaw was set in a grim line, his dark hair tousled from running frustrated hands through it. At 35, he was a man who commanded boardrooms with a single glance, whose net worth could buy islands. Yet here he was, utterly powerless against the three little tyrants who shared his blood. "Not again," he muttered, his deep voice laced with exhaustion. He stepped inside, the scent of his expensive cologne, notes of sandalwood and citrus clashing with the nursery's chaos. Scooping up Luca with one arm, he tried to soothe Lila with a gentle rock, but Leo's tantrum only escalated, his cries bouncing off the walls like echoes in a cavern. It had been this way since the day the triplets were born, 18 months ago. Alexander's wife, Sophia, had died in childbirth, a complication no amount of money could prevent. The doctors had called it a tragic anomaly, but to Alexander, it was a wound that festered, turning his heart to ice. He had thrown himself into work, building Voss Innovations into an even greater behemoth, while the children were left to a revolving door of caregivers. Each departure chipped away at him, a reminder of his failure as a father. "Why can't anyone handle them?" he whispered to the empty air, as thunder rumbled again, shaking the crystal chandelier overhead. Down in the city below, where the skyscrapers pierced the stormy sky like spears, Elena Ramirez huddled under a leaky bus stop shelter, her thin jacket doing little against the downpour. At 28, She was a single mother, fighting tooth and nail for her 4-year-old son, Matteo. Her life was a far cry from the glittering world of the Voss Mansion rented apartments with peeling wallpaper, endless shifts at a dingy diner, and the constant ache of bills piling up. But Elena had a fire in her, a quiet strength forged from loss. Her husband had abandoned them 2 years ago, leaving her to scrape by on tips and dreams. Scrolling through her cracked phone screen, she spotted the ad, "Live-in nanny needed for triplets, generous pay, immediate start." The address was the infamous Voss estate. Whispers in the city called it a graveyard for nannies, but Elena saw opportunity. "We need this, mijo," she murmured to Matteo, who slept against her shoulder, his small chest rising and falling with innocent trust. The next morning, as the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden rays over the manicured lawns, Elena arrived at the mansion's wrought iron gates. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, the scent of fresh-cut grass mingling with her nervousness. She adjusted her simple blouse, smoothing down her dark curls, and pressed the intercom. "I'm here for the nanny position," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies. Inside, Alexander glanced at the security feed, his eyes narrowing at the determined woman on screen. Another one, he thought wearily, but something in her posture upright, unyielding, made him buzz her in. As Elena stepped into the foyer, the grandeur hit her like a wave vaulted ceilings, priceless art on the walls, the faint echo of her footsteps on polished stone. Alexander greeted her in the living room, his presence commanding, his suit impeccably tailored. "Miss Ramirez," he said coolly, extending a hand that felt like steel. "The job is simple care for my children, but I warn you, it's not for the faint of heart." Elena met his gaze, her brown eyes warm and resolute. "I've raised a child alone, Mr. Voss. Nothing scares me anymore." Little did she know, the triplets were about to test that claim. As she was led to the nursery, the first cries greeted her: Leo's defiant yell, Lila's plaintive wail, Luca's mischievous coo. Elena knelt down, her hands gentle as she picked up a fallen toy, the soft fabric brushing her skin. "Hello, little ones," she whispered, her voice like a soothing melody amid the storm. For the first time in months, the room fell into a tentative hush, as if the children sensed something different about her. But Alexander, watching from the doorway, felt a flicker of doubt. How long until she, too, broke? The mansion's walls seemed to hold their breath, the air thick with unspoken histories and impending trials. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the promise of change or heartbreak. In the days that followed, Elena dove into the whirlwind. The triplets were a force of nature. Leo's boundless energy had him climbing furniture like a tiny mountaineer, his laughter ringing like bells when he succeeded, only to turn to tears when he tumbled. Lila demanded constant attention, her big eyes filling with tears at the slightest perceived slight, her tiny hands clutching Elena's skirt with a grip that spoke of deeper needs. Luca, the observer, would watch Elena with curious intensity, his babbling sounds evolving into attempts at words under her encouragement. The nursery buzzed with activity, the crinkle of diaper changes, the splash of bath time, the sweet scent of baby shampoo lingering in the air. Alexander observed from afar, his study a sanctuary of leather-bound books and glowing screens. The clack of his keyboard was his armor, drowning out the domestic symphony below. But glimpses of Elena, her patient smile as she sang lullabies in Spanish, the way she turned chaos into order, stirred something in him. Yet he kept his distance, his heart guarded by walls of grief and pride. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of purple and gold, Elena sat on the nursery floor, exhausted but content, with the triplets finally asleep. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight, stars projected on the ceiling twinkling like distant hopes. She allowed herself a moment to dream of stability for Matteo, who was staying with her sister during this trial period, of proving she could conquer the impossible. Unbeknownst to her, Alexander stood in the shadows, his breath catching at the scene. For the first time, the mansion felt less like a tomb and more like a home. But the title's shadow loomed. No maid had survived. What impossible feat would Elena achieve to break the cycle? The night deepened, secrets waiting to unfold. Elena's first full week at the Voss Mansion unfolded like a delicate dance between opulence and ordeal. The estate sprawled across acres of rolling hills on the outskirts of the city, a testament to Alexander's unparalleled success. Built in the style of a modern palace, with glass walls that blurred the line between indoors and out, it featured infinity pools that seemed to merge with the horizon, gardens blooming with exotic flowers whose scents wafted through open windows, and a helipad where Alexander's private chopper hummed like a mechanical bird. Inside, every surface gleamed Italian marble counters in the kitchen, crystal vases holding fresh orchids, and art pieces by masters that could fund small nations. The air carried a perpetual crispness, filtered and conditioned, a far cry from the stuffy, smoke-tinged diners Elena had known. Alexander Voss was the architect of this empire, a man whose name evoked both awe and intimidation in boardrooms worldwide. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp features softened only by the faint lines of fatigue around his steel blue eyes. He moved with the precision of a predator. His days began at dawn, a ritual of black coffee bitter and strong, steaming in a porcelain mug and endless calls to global offices. Voss innovations revolutionized AI and renewable energy, turning him into a billionaire by 30, but beneath the polished exterior lay a shattered core. Sophia's death had left him adrift. She had been his anchor, a vibrant artist who brought warmth to his calculated world. Now, he armored himself in solitude, his voice clipped in conversations, his touch absent from his children's lives. Efficiency is key, he'd say in meetings, but at home, it translated to emotional detachment, a cold wind that chilled the mansion's halls. In stark contrast was Elena, born in a modest neighborhood where streetlights flickered and laughter spilled from crowded kitchens. She embodied resilience wrapped in kindness. Her skin glowed with a warm olive tone, her dark hair often tied back in a practical ponytail that revealed the gentle curve of her neck. She wore simple closed jeans and blouses that hid the scars of hard labor, but her smile lit rooms like sunlight breaking through clouds. As a single mother, Elena's world revolved around Matteo, her bright-eyed son with a mop of curly hair and an insatiable curiosity. "Mama, when can I see the big house?" he'd ask over video calls, his voice tinny through her old phone. Elena's struggles were palpable, evictions narrowly avoided, meals stretched thin, nights spent worrying over fevers or finances. Yet she carried an unyielding optimism, humming tunes from her grandmother's stories as she worked. The triplets were the heart of this contrasting world, 3 bundles of energy that bridged wealth and want. Leo, the eldest by minutes, was a whirlwind of motion, his chubby legs propelling him across rooms in pursuit of adventure. His cries were sharp, like alarms, but his laughter bubbled like a brook, infectious and pure. Lila, the only girl, was sensitive to the core, her wide eyes mirroring her mother's lost warmth. Tearing up at loud noises or sudden changes, she clung to soft blankets, the fabric's texture soothing her, and her coos were melodic, seeking connection. Luca, the youngest, observed everything with quiet intensity, his fingers exploring textures, the roughness of carpet, the smoothness of toys, with a scientist's focus. Together, they formed a triad of chaos, spilled sippy cups, leaving sticky trails, toys scattered like confetti, and synchronized cries that could drown out thunder. Elena's integration into this world began tentatively. On her second day, as morning light filtered through the nursery's sheer curtains, casting a golden haze, she prepared breakfast for the children. The kitchen was a chef's dream, stainless steel appliances humming softly, pantries stocked with organic purees and fresh fruits whose juices stained her fingers sweetly. Buenos dias, mis angelitos, she greeted the triplets, lifting them one by one from their cribs. Leo squirmed in her arms, his tiny hands grabbing at her earrings, while Lila nestled against her chest, inhaling the faint lavender scent of Elena's soap. Luca blinked up at her, his trust tentative but growing. Alexander watched this from the doorway, his arms crossed, the leather of his watch strap cool against his skin. "They need structure," he said abruptly, his tone like gravel. "Schedules, not songs." Elena turned, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Children need love too. Mr. Voss, structure without heart is just a cage." He paused, surprised by her candor, the air between them crackling with unspoken challenge. He nodded curtly and left, the echo of his footsteps fading down the hall. As days blurred, the contrast deepened. Elena's poverty-stricken past clashed with the mansion's excess, while she mended the triplets' clothes with careful stitches. Alexander signed deals worth millions without a second thought. Yet, moments of connection emerged. One afternoon, in the sun-drenched playroom, Elena built a fort from silk cushions, their softness enveloping the children like clouds. Laughter filled the air, Leo's gleeful shouts, Lila's giggles, Luca's soft babbles, mingling with the distant chirp of birds outside. Alexander, passing by on a call, paused, the sound tugging at buried memories of Sophia's joy. Elena's own life wove in subtly. Evenings, after tucking the triplets in their breaths, even. The room scented with baby lotion she'd call Mateo. "Tell me about your day, mijo," she'd say, her voice soft over the phone's speaker. The mansion's Wi-Fi, a luxury she savored. Mateo's tales of playground adventures brought tears to her eyes, a reminder of her sacrifices. "I miss you, Mama," he'd whisper, and she'd promise. "Soon, we'll be together in a better place." The setting amplified these contrasts, the mansion's library, with its towering shelves of leather-bound tomes smelling of aged paper, where Alexander retreated, the modest staff quarters where Elena unpacked her few belongings, a photo of Mateo, a worn necklace from her mother. Outside, the gardens offered respite, petals soft underfoot, bees buzzing lazily, a place where Elena took the triplets for picnics, the grass tickling their toes. Yet, underlying tensions simmered. Alexander's broken heart manifested in brusque commands. "Don't spoil them." He'd snap when Elena offered extra hugs. Elena's kindness masked her exhaustion, her body aching from endless chases, her mind whirling with worries. The children, sensing the divide, alternated between delight and distress, their cries a barometer of the household's unrest. One night, as rain pattered against the windows again, Elena sat in the dim nursery light, rocking Lila, who fussed with teething pains. The child's warmth against her, the rhythmic creak of the chair, evoked memories of her own struggles. Alexander entered unexpectedly, his face shadowed. "Why do you stay?" he asked, vulnerability cracking his facade. Elena looked up, her eyes steady, because they need someone who sees them, not just manages them. For a moment, silence hung, heavy with potential, the scent of rain fresh through a cracked window. The stage was set wealth versus want, coldness against kindness, chaos tempered by care. But as the days wore on, the true tests loomed, ready to forge or fracture these fragile bonds. As Elena settled into the rhythm of the Voss Mansion, the main conflicts began to surface like cracks in a pristine facade, threatening to shatter the delicate balance she had started to build. The triplets' demands were relentless, a constant barrage that tested her endurance. Morning started with a cacophony of cries echoing through the halls, the sound amplified by the high ceilings, pulling Elena from fitful sleep in her modest room. She'd rush to the nursery, the cool hardwood floors chilling her bare feet, only to find Leo scaling his crib bars like a tiny escape artist, Lila's face scrunched in hunger, and Luca's diaper a soggy disaster. One at a time, "Mis pequeños," she'd murmur, her hands moving swiftly, changing, feeding, soothing with the precision of a juggler. But the hardships extended beyond the children. Alexander's cold demeanor created an invisible barrier, his expectations looming like storm clouds. He demanded perfection meals on schedule, the nursery spotless, reports on the triplets' progress delivered via terse emails, even though they lived under the same roof. "Efficiency, Ms. Ramirez," he'd say during their brief encounters in the kitchen, where the aroma of fresh brewed coffee clashed with baby formula. Elena bit back retorts, her pride stinging. She was no stranger to hard work. But his detachment felt like a personal slight. "They're not projects, Mr. Voss, they're your children," she once ventured, her voice trembling slightly as she handed him a drawing Lila had scribbled, colors bleeding across the page like emotions unchecked, misunderstandings piled up, fueling tension. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in fiery oranges, Elena overheard Alexander on a call in his study, the door ajar. The nanny adequate, but replaceable. His words cut like knives, the phone's beep ending the conversation. Hurt flared in her chest, the scent of his cigar smoke lingering, acrid and oppressive. She confronted him later, in the dimly lit hallway, shadows playing across his face. "If I'm just adequate, why keep me?" she asked, her eyes flashing. Alexander's response was clipped, "Because no one else will." The injustice burned. She earned a fraction of what his executives did, yet bore the weight of his family's emotional void. The children amplified these strains. The triplets' energy was boundless, but their behaviors hinted at deeper issues, perhaps from the lack of consistent care. Leo's tantrums escalated into full meltdowns, his small body rigid with frustration, screams piercing like sirens. Lila withdrew at times, her thumb in her mouth, eyes distant, as if sensing the household's unrest. Luca's mischief turned destructive, knocking over vases that shattered with a crash, shards glinting under the lights like broken promises. Elena's days blurred into exhaustion, wiping tears, cleaning messes, her muscles aching from lifting and chasing. Nights brought little relief. The mansion's silence was eerie, broken only by monitors crackling with the children's stirrings. Suspense built in subtle ways. One afternoon, During a rare outing to the garden, Leo darted toward the pool, his laughter turning Elena's blood cold. She sprinted, the grass slick under her shoes, scooping him up just as his toes touched the water's edge. Heart pounding, she clutched him close, the chlorine scent sharp in the air. Too close, she whispered, glancing back at the mansion where Alexander worked, oblivious. What if she failed? The thought haunted her, especially with Matteo depending on her stability. Injustices deepened the rift. Alexander's staff gardeners, chefs treated Elena with pitying glances, whispering about past nannies driven away by his demands. He doesn't see people, only assets, the housekeeper confided one day over lunch, the clink of silverware underscoring her words. Elena felt the weight of class divide her worn shoes against the mansion's luxury, her humble background clashing with his privilege. When she requested time off to visit Matteo, Alexander hesitated. "The children come first," he said, his eyes avoiding hers. Fury simmered. Her son was her world, yet here she sacrificed for his. Brief moments of suspense kept the air charged. Late one night, thunder rumbling outside, Elena found the nursery door ajar, a shadow moving within. Her pulse raced as she crept forward, the floor creaking softly. It was Alexander, standing over the cribs, his hand hovering as if afraid to touch. "They look like her," he murmured, voice raw. Elena retreated unseen, but the encounter lingered, a glimpse of vulnerability amid the coldness, hardships compounded with external pressures. Elena's sister called, voice strained over the line. "Matteo's asking for you every night," guilt twisted like a knife. The phone's warmth contrasting the cool mansion air. Balancing both worlds felt impossible. One misstep, and she'd lose everything. Meanwhile, the triplets' chaos peaked during a dinner party. Alexander hosted crystal glasses tinkling, guests' laughter floating upstairs. The children woke in unison, cries escalating. Elena managed alone, sweat beading on her brow, while downstairs Alexander charmed investors. Oblivious, tension crested in a heated argument. After a day where Luca bumped his head, a small bruise blooming like a storm cloud, Alexander stormed into the nursery. "How could you let this happen?" he demanded, his voice booming, the room's toys scattering under his stride. Elena stood firm, her hands trembling. "I was handling all three if you helped." He cut her off. "That's your job." The injustice ignited her. "And yours as a father." Silence fell, heavy as lead. The triplets' whimpers the only sound. Yet, amid the conflicts, empathy flickered. Elena saw Alexander's pain in quiet moments, his fingers tracing Sophia's photo on his desk, eyes distant. He noticed her dedication, the way she read stories, her voice rising and falling like waves, captivating the children. But misunderstandings persisted, like when he assumed her late-night calls were to a lover, jealousy unspoken twisting his features. The main conflict simmered, a pot ready to boil over Elena's kindness, clashing with Alexander's walls. The triplets caught in the crossfire. Suspense hung in every shadow, every cry, promising that the hardships were merely the prelude to greater storms. As the weeks turned into a precarious routine, unexpected twists began to unravel the fragile threads holding the Voss household together, each revelation striking like lightning in a clear sky. Lena had grown accustomed to the mansion's rhythms, the soft hum of the central air, the distant roar of Alexander's sports car departing for meetings, but beneath the surface, secrets lurked, waiting to erupt. The first twist came on a crisp autumn morning, leaves crunching underfoot, as Elena pushed the triplet stroller through the garden paths. The air was scented with fallen apples, tart and inviting, when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Ms. Ramirez, this is Dr. Harlan from the Children's Clinic, the voice said, professional yet urgent. Elena's heart skipped. She had taken the triplets for routine checkups, but this felt different. There's something in their records you should know. The triplets. They have a mild genetic condition, hyperactivity linked to a rare syndrome. It's why they're so challenging. Mr. Voss insisted on keeping it private. Shock washed over her. The stroller's wheels squeaking to a halt. Leo babbled impatiently, but Elena's mind reeled. Alexander had hidden this. No wonder nannies fled. Without knowledge, it was like battling shadows, confronting him that evening in his study. The fire crackling in the hearth, casting flickering light on his face. She demanded answers. Why didn't you tell me? Alexander's eyes hardened, but a flicker of guilt crossed them. Because it's my burden, not yours. The revelation shifted everything. Elena's struggles weren't failures, but symptoms of a concealed truth, deepening her empathy while fueling resentment. The second twist struck harder, like a betrayal from within. While organizing the nursery closet one rainy afternoon, water drumming on the roof like impatient fingers, Elena discovered a hidden box tucked behind stacks of unused clothes. Inside were letters, yellowed with age, addressed to Sophia. Her hands trembled as she read one. My dearest, I can't stay. The pressure. It's too much. Forgive me. It was signed by Sophia herself. Dated days before the birth. Sophia hadn't died in childbirth, as Alexander claimed. She had left him, overwhelmed by his world, and perished in a car accident shortly after. The official story was a cover to shield the triplets from scandal. Elena's breath caught, the paper's texture rough against her skin. This explained Alexander's eyes, not just grief, but abandonment's sting. But why the lie? Suspense built as she debated confronting him. That night, over dinner in the grand dining room, candlelight dancing on silverware, she couldn't hold back. Sophia left you, she said softly. The words hanging in the air like smoke. Alexander's fork clattered, his face paling. How dare you pry, he thundered, but his voice cracked. The twist exposed his vulnerability, a powerful man crippled by rejection, his coldness a shield against further pain. Elena felt a pang of sympathy, but also anger. His secrets had endangered the children emotionally. The third twist arrived like a ghost from Elena's past, intertwining their fates in shocking ways. During a video call with Matteo, his innocent chatter filling the room with warmth, Elena's sister mentioned a long-lost family connection. Remember Abuela's stories about that rich family she worked for? Turns out, Sophia Voss was a distant cousin through marriage or something. Elena froze, the phone slipping slightly in her grip, digging into old family photos that night. Under the soft glow of her bedside lamp, she found evidence, a faded picture of her grandmother with a young Sophia's family. The link was tenuous, but real. Elena's blood tied to the Voss legacy through extended kin. This revelation hit like a wave, the scent of old paper evoking memories. Was this why she connected so deeply with the triplets? Suspense mounted as she wondered if Alexander knew. Revealing it to him in the library, bookshelves towering like silent witnesses, she showed the photo. We're connected, she said, voice steady. Alexander's eyes widened, betrayal flashing. You came here knowing, he accused. No, I just found out. The twist added layers. Elena's hiring wasn't coincidence, perhaps fate, but it sparked distrust, as if she had ulterior motives. These twists maintained a whirlwind of interest, each peeling back layers of deception. The genetic condition prompted Elena to research late into nights, her eyes straining under desk light, adapting routines with sensory toys that crinkled and soothed, reducing tantrums. Sophia's true story humanized Alexander. In quiet moments, he shared fragments. She loved painting sunsets, he'd say, voice hoarse, the room's air thick with unspoken regret. The family link bonded Elena closer to the children, her songs now carrying ancestral echoes, Lila's eyes lighting up in recognition. Yet, the revelations bred new conflicts. Alexander withdrew further at first, his footsteps echoing lonelily through halls. But Elena's persistence, gentle touches on his arm, shared coffees steaming with possibility chipped away. Suspense lingered. Would these secrets heal or destroy? One evening, as wind howled outside, Alexander confessed, "I hid it all to protect them." Elena nodded, tears glistening. But truth sets us free. The twists wove a tapestry of surprise, keeping the narrative pulsing with drama, empathy blooming amid the shocks. The climax erupted on a fateful winter evening, snow blanketing the Voss estate in a deceptive serenity, while inside, emotions boiled to a breaking point. The mansion's lights glowed warmly against the darkening sky, but the air inside crackled with unspoken turmoil. Elena had spent the day managing the triplets' escalating energy, their syndrome amplified by a brewing storm, Leo racing through rooms like a whirlwind, Lila's cries sharp and unrelenting, Luca's mischief turning hazardous as he toppled a lamp, shards scattering like ice. Exhaustion weighed on her bones aching, the scent of pine from the Christmas tree clashing with her rising anxiety. Alexander, buried in work, had been distant, the twists of the past weeks straining their fragile truce. "I need space," he'd snapped that morning, his breath visible in the cold study air. But fate had other plans. As night fell, flakes swirling outside like lost souls, Lila's fussiness turned alarming. Her skin burned hot, fever spiking suddenly, her whimpers escalating to labored breaths. Elena's heart raced, the nursery's nightlight casting eerie shadows. "Shh, mi amor," she soothed. But panic gripped her. The roads were icing over, the nearest hospital miles away. Rushing to Alexander's study, the door banging open, she found him staring at Sophia's photo, eyes red-rimmed. "Lila's sick. We need to go now," she cried, voice breaking. Alexander froze, then sprang into action. But as they bundled the children, disaster struck. Leo, sensing the chaos, darted toward the grand staircase, his tiny feet slipping on the polished steps. Time slowed. Elena's scream pierced the air, Alexander's face contorting in horror. Leo tumbled, a small body rolling down, thuds echoing like thunderclaps in Elena's chest. In that heart-stopping moment, Elena did the impossible. Without thought, she lunged, her body hurtling down the stairs after him. Arms outstretched, the world blurred the sting of impact on her knees, the metallic taste of fear in her mouth. She caught Leo mid-fall, twisting to shield him, her back slamming against the banister with a crack that sent pain exploding through her. They rolled to a stop at the bottom, Leo crying but unharmed, clutched to her chest. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, warm and sticky, but she whispered, "You're safe, little one," her voice a tremor of relief and agony. Alexander descended in a blur, scooping them both up, his hands shaking for the first time Elena had seen. "Elena." "God." "Elena," he choked, his voice raw with emotion. the scent of his fierce sweat mingling with her blood. But the crisis wasn't over. Lila's fever raged, her tiny body limp in the carrier. With roads treacherous, Alexander's helicopter grounded by wind, they faced isolation. Elena, ignoring her pain ribs likely cracked, vision blurring, took charge. "We have to stabilize her," she said through gritted teeth, directing Alexander to fetch medicine from the well-stocked cabinet, her knowledge from raising Mateo guiding them. The emotional peak intensified as Alexander broke down, kneeling in the foyer, snow visible through windows like a white veil. He cradled Lila while Elena administered a fever reducer, her hands steady despite the agony. "I can't lose them. I can't lose you," he sobbed, tears streaming, his powerful frame crumbling. The words hung heavy, revealing his buried love not just for the children, but for Elena, who had pierced his armor. "You've been their mother when I couldn't be a father," he confessed, voice hoarse, the room's chill seeping into their bones. Elena's sacrifice deepened the drama. Pain radiated from her injuries, but she pushed on, singing a lullaby through tears, her voice quavering yet soothing. The triplets huddled close, Leo clinging, Luca watching wide-eyed. Lila's breaths easing. Suspense peaked as the storm howled, power flickering, isolating them further. "If we don't get help," Elena whispered, but Alexander, galvanized, used his satellite phone to summon a medevac team, defying the weather in the emotional torrent. Flashbacks assaulted Alexander Sophia's departure, his isolation, Elena's arrival like a beacon. "You did the impossible, you saved him, saved us," he murmured, his hand cupping her cheek, warm against her clammy skin. Elena's eyes met his, love unspoked, blooming amid the pain. The climax crested as the helicopter's thrum pierced the night, lights cutting through snow, rescue arriving. Elena collapsed then, her body giving out, but her heart soared. She had bridged the impossible, sacrificing for a family that had become her own. In the wake of the storm's fury, the Voss Mansion transformed from a bastion of isolation into a haven of healing and hope, the resolution unfolding like the gentle thaw of spring after a harsh winter. Elena awoke in a private hospital room, the beep of monitors a steady rhythm, sunlight filtering through blinds to warm her bandaged form. Her ribs were bruised, not broken, the gash on her forehead stitched neatly, but the true mending began within. Alexander sat vigil by her bed, his usually impeccable suit rumpled, stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes softened with a vulnerability that reshaped him. "You're awake," he breathed, his hand enveloping hers, calluses from worry surprising her. "The doctors say you'll be fine thanks to you." Lila's fever broke. It was just a virus, amplified by her condition. Relief washed over Elena, the sterile scent of antiseptic mingling with the faint cologne on his skin. But more than physical recovery, the night had forged unbreakable bonds. Alexander's breakdown had been his turning point. No longer the cold billionaire. He confessed over cups of hospital coffee, steaming and bittersweet. "I was afraid to love again. But you showed me how." His voice cracked, tears glistening, as he vowed change, more time with the children. Therapy for his grief, openness about their syndrome. Elena's growth mirrored his. From a struggling single mother, she emerged honored, her sacrifice celebrated. News of her heroism leaked whispers in the city, turning to headlines, praising the nanny who braved danger for the Voss heirs. Alexander publicly acknowledged her, a press conference where his voice rang with pride. "Elena isn't just a caregiver. She's family, The words echoed through media, but privately, in the mansion's sunlit living room days later, he made it real. "Marry me," he proposed, kneeling with a ring that sparkled like captured starlight, the triplets cooing nearby. Elena's heart swelled, tears of joy streaming as she nodded. Yes, for us all. The family reunited in heartwarming ways. Matteo arrived, his small feet pattering across the foyer, eyes wide at the grandeur. "Mama's hero," he exclaimed, hugging her gently. The triplets took to him instantly, Leo sharing toys with a grin, Lila cuddling close, Luca babbling welcomes. Scenes of domestic bliss unfolded, picnics in the garden, grass soft under blankets, laughter ringing as Alexander chased the children, his deep chuckles a new melody. Evenings brought story time, Elena's voice weaving tales in Spanish and English, the room aglow with lamplight, scents of cocoa warming the air. Character growth shone brightly. Alexander softened, trading boardroom battles for bedtime routines, his hands learning the gentle art of diapering, his heart opening to hugs that melted as ice. "I see Sophia in them and you," he'd whisper to Elena, their foreheads touching in quiet moments. Elena, once burdened by poverty, found honor and security. No longer struggling, she advocated for single mothers, using Alexander's resources to fund charities. Her kindness amplified. The finale brimmed with hope, love, and humanity. One spring day, under blooming cherry blossoms, petals drifting like confetti, the family gathered for a vow renewal, symbolizing rebirth. Vows exchanged. Through storm and secrets, we choose love. The triplets, now toddlers, toddled down the aisle, their giggles pure joy. Matteo beamed as ring-bearer, the mansion's gardens filled with guests' applause. As sunset painted the sky in golden hues, Alexander and Elena stood on the balcony, arms entwined, the children asleep below. "You did the impossible," he murmured, kissing her temple. "You survived and saved us." Elena smiled, the wind carrying scents of new beginnings. "We all did, together." The story closed on a note of enduring love, a testament to humanity's resilience, hearts mended, futures bright.